celebrating 9 years of podcast excellence. The King of Podcasts Radio Network proudly presents the Wrestling is Real podcast, because wrestling needs us.
Let's go, episode 680 of the Wrestling is Real podcast. This is KLP. Thanks for being here. I appreciate all of you being on with me on the program. As we get started, and we're going to go and really take a good run through of WrestleMania 38 coming up in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks, Dallas, Texas. I will be doing a post show for both nights, Saturday and Sunday. So go and listen for it right here, WrestlingIsReal.com, wherever you find the show, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio. For whatever reason, iHeartRadio gets a lot of downloads. For all of you that listen over there, thank you so much for that. I appreciate that. I really personally like to go to Spotify myself, because that's where I get the most. I listen to my podcast there the most, and I like just the platform. Don't get me wrong, iHeartRadio is great, but I would love for you to at least to go to Spotify. Please rate the show 5 stars, and do the same for Apple Podcasts. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and rate the show so this show gets to more people. And the real word of what the wrestling industry needs to know is going to get out there from yours truly, King of Podcasts, to you. And for each and every one of you, listen, especially during this WrestleMania season, I'll tell you, it's amazing the audience that comes in and listens to this program. And I'm so thankful to all of you to check out this show. I don't take enough time to really say so much and how much it means for all of you to listen to this show after so much time. Again, 9.5 years I've been doing this show. I'm so thankful. So thanks for listening in. Thanks for catching the show as you always do each and every week. Let's go and get started. There's a lot of matches that are coming up that will be at the show. Night 1, we're going to just try to break through some of the storylines here and what they're doing, and really just kind of focus on the fact of that. I mean, they have star power here, but it's stagnant. And it's pretty weak right now because they're really having to go to the same level of talent they've had for the last few years, because they're out of the real talent that they could have, that they could use for certain events that would really stand out. I mean, Goldberg is just, he's injured. Really not much you can do with him right now. Same thing with Undertaker. He's retired. I mean, what are you going to do? Another cinematic match? I mean, to keep having him out there and out there and out there. I mean, pretty much put the boots up and retired. So all of that there. And you say to yourself, okay, what else is left? They have no new stars to push. And when you look at the card this time around, the obvious pressure from the broadcast partners at Peacock, plus the shareholders and all that they have, they're putting everything they have into this show to make sure they sell it out. I have not looked at what they've done in terms of tickets and how much is left, but I do need to go and take a look at WrestleTix and see what they've done so far and see if they've gotten any farther with the ticket sales. I mean, right now, they're still kind of dealing with things where, okay, they're going to Pittsburgh and it's sold out. So that's good for them. For Monday Night Raw, when they were in the Roosevelt Horizon or Allstate Arena, they pretty much had it filled up. Looks like they were able to get up to capacity. What I want to look at now is the last check we had for WrestleMania. On March 19th, WrestleTix reported that for night 1, well, first of all, Friday Night SmackDown of the 2022 Hall of Fame, as of last check, March 18th, it showed that they're about to sell out the American Airlines Center in Dallas, Texas, which holds capacity 11,547, and as of 6 days ago, they're about to sell it out. Okay, that's fine. SmackDown had a good show for that. Stand and Deliver so far, they're only setting up for 5,300 for this event, and they've already gotten about, looks like 80% of tickets sold for the matinee show at noon on Saturday. So we'll talk about Stand and Deliver and WrestleMania coming up. I should be able to go and watch most of it. I don't know, because I'm going to be out and about. I'll find a way to watch it while I'm out, so that's fine. Now, they showed that WrestleMania Night 2, the current setup so far would be 63,000, and they sold 58. And this was as of March 19th, and this is already including when Stone Cold Steve Austin was announced to be on the KO show. And that's what we know about that so far. So really, they're only going to give about, maybe up to, they could go and quote that they got 70,000 for both nights, but they're not going to fill this place up. It's not going to happen. And that's not good. I mean, if you're going to take Cowboy Stadium, you're going to go and put themselves out there to try to sell out This is going to take a little bit of a step back. I don't know what they're going to do to try to fill the rest of the show, but they've already had the matches announced. And when you look at what they're going to have to do to try to build that up, I mean, to get people to go to the venue to watch the event, they need a lot more than what they already have. Let's just call it as it is. And so when you look at what they have going on, I mean, there's talk now that among other things that we're talking about in the last month as we've been doing the show, I mean, ever since Elimination Chamber, you know, a lot of the buzz went to Revolution for AEW. That's it. I mean, in a very, very much slighter buzz, you're talking about also where Matt Cardona defended and won, was able to retain the NWA World's Heavyweight title over Nick Aldis at the Crockett Cup this weekend. I didn't get a chance to watch it, but I got to catch that match. And the Briscoes won the Crockett Cup. And as for Revolution, AEW is right now on a momentum of its own. They are just running on the crest of their own wave. And there's just no stopping. And they have so much talent right now. And the crowd responds so well to what they're doing. They go to San Antonio, go to Austin tonight, and the crowd just pops like crazy. They're just running it. And they're doing a great job right now. I mean, even some of the things they're doing when it comes to building all of their stuff when it comes to Dynamite and the factions, and they're getting reshuffled right now, and the storylines are just getting so compelling. They have so much solid talent. And you look at just tonight's Dynamite and just the level of competition they have right now. CM Punk, we haven't seen him. CM Punk, we haven't seen him in a couple of weeks. And they were able to do that, and, they're not necessarily too concerned about what's happening. Like, their numbers are not suffering at all because they don't need to feel where Dynamite doesn't need to feel they need to go and have such a large. They need to have all hands on deck on the show every week. They switch it up. When you look at when you look at what Dynamite's doing, I mean, they're still kind of under 1 million viewers, but they're consistent right now. And with that said, there you go. Okay, for their numbers overall this year, they've been pulling between no less than 869,000 and up to 1.1 million. They've been consistently right at that point. Pretty good for the network. So they got that. And Rampage is pretty consistent, except for a couple nights they had where they had to go and change the hour, where they dropped under 500,000, but they're still staying around 500 to 600,000 for Friday nights at 10 o'clock. Pretty consistent. So you got that going for you. And Dynamite is holding its own. Really, Wednesday night, unopposed, and they're just putting on a good, consistent show. And really, if you're just a good old wrestling fan, you're enjoying what's happening. CM Punk FTR, solid match. And really, there's just storylines within each for the most part. The 8-man tag you had, that was pretty damn good. You go into Varsity Blondes. And then you have now the new Blackpool Combat Club with Moxley, Danielson, and William Regal. That's pretty fun. All this together is just excellent, what they have put together. You have the Wardlow MJF confrontation. Solid stuff. And Wheeler Yuta looking to be recruited by William Regal to join Blackpool Combat Club and leaving best friends. There's a lot of factions with a lot of things going on. You also had Adam Cole, Heyman Page continuing that whole top-end main event storyline. Then you have more of the confrontation with Sammy Guevara and Scorpio Sky with the TNT title. The re-altering of the gimmick of Chris Statlander. We don't know what she is, but the alien, she's no longer. That has been dropped. I imagine Dr. Britt Baker will take a little bit of time off to let her rest because she's been running with that title for a long time. And Thunder Rosa try to celebrate with her new win as the AEW Women's World Champion. Now she's got to deal with the native beast who's been doing a role on AEW Dark Elevation Dark, Nyla Rose. And they just have so much talent, so much to work with, and so much more that doesn't get on here on a regular basis. Like tonight, seeing Adam Cole and Jay Lethal, a Ring of Honor classic, a clinic to see out there. Excellent. Like, I really feel like I want to go back and watch the whole damn show. And Jericho Appreciation Society, where Jericho bringing himself with a new crop of young talent, and really, I think his working with Santana Ortiz and Sammy Guevara definitely elevated. Santana Ortiz already were such a solid tag team anyway, but now you're bringing him in with a bigger spotlight. Same way where Kenny Kingston is brought into a bigger spotlight altogether. Jericho has been putting people over, making stars. He's getting people over, and they're becoming stars right away. Orange Cassidy has become a star as a result. A pillar of the company. Same thing with Kenny Kingston. Same thing with, all of that. MJF. Like, the guy is really trying to get some stars up, and you can see it. You can see the response for Jungle Boy, for MJF, for Darby Allin, for Sammy Guevara. It's just so much there. And the other thing, too, man, I watch Dark and Dark Elevation, and I look at the crowd, and they're definitely and they're not sitting on their hands watching matches. Really, some of the matches they have, especially even like Dark Order. Wow. Dark Order was in the main event tonight. And I watch those guys consistently on Dark, because Dark Order is always on Dark and Dark Elevation. Silver and Reynolds in a strong match, and they're over. And they just have fun out there. It's just overall fun. They're not trying to go ahead and go over the top, having to go ahead and build such mega stars. They have stars. And they know that, it's going to take time for some of the other stars they have to really become such a level, to become iconic. But they're going to get there. We know that we probably see that MJF is definitely going to get to that level someday. He's going to be at such an iconic level. When you have these guys on our television sets for years going in, and then you have some of these stars now in their late 20s, early 30s, because a lot of these younger stars, they're all in their mid-20s right now. Give them a couple more years of that constant exposure and constant time we've seen them out there. They become household names. They're becoming household names now. AEW has that going for them. But what about the rest? What is it WWE is not doing? Because AEW is creating new stars. They're creating new household brands. They're creating names that people will talk about. And they're able to garner over 1 million or almost 1 million viewers every week for their show. And they're getting good response. And most importantly, remember, NXT still never recovered from having to go ahead and go up head-to-head, being thrown at. But what says more about anything with WWE and AEW is that the star power, a lot of it, quite a few members that you see now on AEW, that was part of the NXT black and gold that everybody loved, everybody praised. And now look, they're in front of a bigger audience. They're in front of a crowd that really is worth their stardom, their star power. Okay, they're getting to go out there. They're not sitting out there in the NXT arena in front of the Full Sail people that get to go there every week. Honestly, when you go to NXT and you go to that Capitol Wrestling Center when they had it, or the NXT arena at the Performance Center, and you look, it's the same, 700 people. Good rowdy crowd. That's good. But it's the same crowd. It's like going to Style Stage 17 for Impact Wrestling. It's no different. These guys deserve to be in front of a bigger audience out there on the road, being seen all over the country. AEW is giving them that. Bryan Danielson, one of the leaders, but then you got Adam Cole, who was singing NXT for the longest time. Keith Lee. Malachi Black for a while was in the NXT section and moves over. There's just so much there that you're seeing. And it's such a big difference. You see Colorado and Bobby Fish. It's all of that. And I don't know enough people, Shane Swerve Strickland, all these names that are coming in, and knowing how important they are. And for people to say, it would have been better if they were in NXT in black and gold. No, they would have been in front of that small crowd. They would have never gotten in front of a big crowd anymore, because they don't do that now. Okay, Stand and Deliver, they're doing the NXT Stand and Deliver because they want to give a showcase to NXT. It's not going to take much for them to go and put a little mini set show for that. I mean, they already have the venue booked. For them to do a matinee in the middle of the afternoon, they can do that. Because they already were going to do like pre-show matches. They're going to have like, probably some setup. They're not doing access. So like any matches they could have had, NXT normally would have been run on a separate night and they would have had it, they haven't done takeovers. And even for NXT, they're only pulling maybe, 3,500? I mean, NXT now, the level they are, do you think in any way, shape, or form, they did Stand and Deliver with the NXT Black and Gold, remember? How many people do you think were going to fit in that stadium? Ask yourself that question. I don't think it was going to be that much. And for those of you that think that could happen, this is where I keep talking about that when you have all this talent that came from Ring of Honor, you were paying them more, you were giving them time to go and develop more, but really, it's as if WWE really just gave them TV time, better TV time than they ever got. But the experience on the road and to get in front of the crowd, in front of their fans, NXT wasn't going to provide them that. And that's what you have to understand too. These stars want to perform in front of fans, not the small crowd in a stadium, in a studio setup. They all worked in like Impact Wrestling or Ring of Honor, working in front of 1,000 people. Just because it's WWE doing it, because it's on USA Network, well, that doesn't make a difference. I mean, sure, you get a better TV audience, but that's just television. You're getting a better audience now with AEW Dynamite. And you're getting the crowd that's hot for these guys to get them over even more because the sound of that crowd. Sure, they pop big for CM Punk, Hardys, but look at the pop that you see for Darby Allin, for MJF, the boos they give him, for Jungle Boy and Luchasaurus, for Orange Cat, like all those younger stars, they're all getting major pops. Everybody gets a pop on that show. Thunder Rosa gets a great response over there now. Britt Baker, all of them. Great responses all across the board. The stigma of like certain stars getting a certain status, it doesn't feel like that like it does in WWE. Now, don't get me wrong. WWE has really been doing their best to try to put together storylines and try to make something that is going to be compelling for WrestleMania. They try to put some storylines that are good, and they have some really good ones. When you look at the card, look, I'll say it like this. But WWE struggles so much to take time to build storylines because they have to rely on so much of talent on a limited roster. They didn't want to have a bloated roster anymore of talent they were not going to push. We know that. But then what do you do after that? When you're asking about, okay, they have certain stars they're going to keep to the top that are so over and have been up at the top for so long, they don't have anyone they feel like they're ready to go ahead and bring up, okay, to get to a certain level that will be at the same level as those other stars. As we've talked about the bubble, that ceiling is very real. And it is where Vince feels like, okay, I need to go ahead and say, all right, we know very well that what they're doing is pretty stale. They're not able to get much out there to make much of a difference. I mean, there's nothing fresh necessarily about the storylines they have. There's nothing really compelling or anything different or really wild about some of the storylines they have. Listen, we can all appreciate how they did Kevin Owens and they had him come out dressed like Stone Cold Steve Austin. That was pretty good attention to detail. All the Brock Lesnar, Roman Reigns stuff that we've seen stretched out for over months. For a long time, as a matter of fact. We've seen that as well. They quickly put together Edge and AJ Styles. We still don't know what Seth Rollins is going to do and if there's a chance that Cody Rhodes comes in. And is that going to make much of a difference? No. There's nobody else on that roster or nobody else that they have. Nothing else in their arsenal. This is going back to July 19th when they brought themselves back from pandemic. And they can sell out every show. You need to understand this. In the time that they had, you had 8 months. Post-pandemic, you're coming back with crowds. And there have been some shows where they weren't able to pull a full crowd. They only got about half of it for a Raw. Sometimes kind of lacking for a SmackDown. They might get their pay-per-views taken care of, sure. But with the momentum they had and the chance to get fans back, and for those wanting to see WrestleMania again for the first time, back out there. And you know there's shows going on all over Dallas. You know, there's supposed to be shows, what is it? We got Ring of Honor, Supercard of Honor will still happen, and Tony Khan's going to book it. And then you look at WrestleCon, the Multiverse of Madness, Impact Wrestling's doing their thing. You know there's other events going on. But then that big monster crowd to come in. You want to see us pandemic and the international crowd can't come? Okay, we can use that as an excuse. But you're telling me there's not enough people around America, of this audience, even of casual fans, that would go to this show. 80,000? You have 30,000 tickets you could sell. You can't get them sold. That's a concerning factor for this company. And this is where I have a thing where, listen, WrestleMania is going to be fine. We'll watch it on TV. Great. But for the company, they need to have that show sold out. I mean, they have to make sure to cover the seats. They need to make sure they're not going to show any spots that are going to look kind of dead. They need to show a full packed crowd in there. Well, what are they going to do to get in there to fill that up? They're going to give away seats, give away tickets that day? No, they can't do that. I don't think they would do it. I mean, you could have a lot of, like, you know, donate a lot of tickets for, like, different groups out there, charities. But that's not enough to get you to 80. I mean, if they want to say, hey, 65, that's a pretty good capacity. With our stage, we make a big monster stage and we'll cover up a third of the whole venue. You could do that. Got a pretty good sized ground crowd you'll have. They'll set that up. But the problem is they've had their certain level of what tickets they had, and they opened up sections. They haven't had to open up much sections anyway. The Stone Cold thing didn't make a dent. Like 5,000 tickets each? Stone Cold's appearance, he's not wrestling. It didn't make a difference if he was going to wrestle or not. He's not going to move the meter. He's not going to get asses in seats anymore, because if he can't wrestle, it's not going to be what it was. It's going to be a 5-10 minute segment, and Kevin Owens is going to get stunned, and Stone Cold's going to get his beers, and it's a nice moment. There will be no WrestleMania moments, I don't think, of a certain level that are going to be like, wow. You know, when WrestleMania 2 years ago was pandemic, and they had to pull out that graveyard match, the Boneyard match, man, that was WWE with their asses on the line. They were up against the gun. They had to pull something off good. They did that, and then they did the Horrors match with John Cena and Bray Wyatt, and they pulled it off. Pretty good stuff. But fast forward, and the momentum that they had. I mean, I asked myself, how long was it going to take for that to kind of like fade out? It didn't take long. They went ahead and used everybody in their arsenal, all their surprises, everything they could have. AEW comes out with surprises every other month. Every month they come out with somebody new, somebody different. And when I see there's certain stars that are starting to, you know, their contracts are expiring and not going to be returning, like a Joey Janela, yeah. So some of the talent's going to go away, and you can see where Tony Khan's going to probably let some other stars let go of their contracts. They're just going to phase, and they're going to just keep the stars they already get brought on, this money that he spent, and then they're going to just let certain stars go, and they'll be probably better off going to greener pastures, because they'll be able to go ahead and say, listen, I was in AEW for all this time. At the beginning, I was pioneers with it, and what's going to be the truth is that there's a number of stars in AEW that have been around since the beginning. They're going to be outgrowing because the company's outgrown them. They've gotten to be bigger, and the level of star power they have now overshadows the stars they actually had originally as stars. And that's not anything to, you know, criticize those stars. It's just a matter of that the company's changed. The culture, the dynamic, the way that show is, it's changed a lot. The amount of star power they have is incredible. And you can say, much like how WCW was back in the day, about Oh, look at all these stars from WWE they're taking in. Sure. But I'll tell you like this, too. WWE made a lot of stars that went to WCW and legitimately were just WWE stars, with a couple that were AWA and maybe other organizations. But for the most part, it was World Wrestling Federation stars in WCW. This is where you're seeing there's not a whole lot of WWE-based stars that came straight from Performance Center all the way up to the top. Not necessarily. Revival, that's probably one. How do you let those guys go? FTR has done so well here in this company. The Hardys would be so important if they would have had them still in WWE right now. Well, they would be badly needed, but they don't. This company doesn't want to look at the Hardys as such an attraction to bring in. And that's a corporate decision. That's what they're going to decide to do. It's not about wrestling. They need to get past this here. And listen, that's fine. They want to go ahead and run with the talent they have right now, which is getting stagnant and stale. You want to run that for one more year? Okay. But you have to build some stars for the future. You just can't sit on your laurels and expect this level of star power to keep a WrestleMania strong. It's not enough. And how are people not going to understand that? What do you do? WWE has conditioned their audience for mediocrity. They don't have anything new to surprise. They did all of that. They didn't leave anything for WrestleMania. And now everybody's come back. Everybody's been on TV for a lot of time. The build-up for WrestleMania. I'll say it like this, and I'm not afraid to say this, and I don't care if people are going to be pissed off at me. But some of you right now watching the part-timers, you're already tired of them because of how they're being used. People are already starting to feel a little bit fatigued with Ronda Rousey. Brock Lesnar, they are trying to do something more to the character, but we see where Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey are not much different. It's a feud that didn't need to happen again. It should have been Ronda and Becky. Why they didn't want to do that yet. And now Becky and Bianca go back again. I mean, Bianca needs to get her win back. Okay. But Becky and Ronda didn't get to happen. That would have been the better match. We all know that. And they built the storyline with Charlotte and Ronda. And they need to do something more with Charlotte. They need to change her up. Because she's been the same queen gimmick for a while. There's no evolution of her gimmick. And that's the problem. She's a great wrestler. And there's nothing more they're doing with her. They're just sticking to what she is. That's it. She's been on TV for so long. It's time to change her up and make her look different. Becky Lynch has changed a lot since coming up to the roster. And she has different gimmick changes all the time. Different catchphrases and everything. Seth Rollins has gone through a number of changes since he came up. Roman Reigns has also gone through a number of changes since he came up. And there's certain stars that don't get that for whatever reason. And that's what we need to go and figure out is WWE is not going to really shake the apple cart. They don't want to do that. They don't want to break anything right now and try to really shake anything up. Because they feel like they can still roll with what they have right now. They'll get a respectable crowd at WrestleMania, but they will not sell it out. And they can chalk it up to the fact they're going to do 2 nights, and they'll probably go back to 1 night next year. Who knows what they'll do, but they'll figure something out. So let's go and talk about the matches now, as we look at it at this point. Okay, I want to go ahead and take the matches and go through my analysis on it just on based on level of interest. We're going to go down and all the way up. So looking at night 1, WrestleMania 38, we'll just go again. Interest, low interest to high interest. First off, SmackDown Tag Team titles, Usos versus Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura. And we have seen this match lots of times. I mean, I'm going to say it. I'm not afraid to say this either. But for the most part, We know that WWE really just, they sandwich some major storylines into some matches that just really don't matter. It's just filler. Because they made it filler. Shinsuke Nakamura and Rick Boogs. Okay, so Shinsuke Nakamura is enhancement talent to be paired with Rick Boogs, who is, I don't know if he's getting much better. I mean, he looks more like, what's the Olympic wrestler I'm thinking about? Not Hercules Hernandez. I can't think of the name right now. But you look at him, it's like, yeah, he looks like an 80s wrestling star, you know, with the singlet and all. And just like he's got good work and everything like that. But, you know, Matt Moss also feels like that same kind of level when it comes to it. But it's just a match. The tag team titles are insignificant. We all know that the tag team titles do not matter at all. Okay? I look at that match and I say, okay, when the Usos are stuck right now, and you can't build a formidable opponent, like Usos are the draw in this match. Rick Boogs and Shinsuke Nakamura, no. And they don't have any particular tag team that could come in right now that would be a big draw for them, nor are they going to put any stars together. There's just nothing here. And that's what sucks, is that you have this right here, and they build this card, and the Usos just got a spot on the card. Like, really? To me, I remember when they were going to be put into the Battle Royal. They were going to no, that's right. They were going to have a match. And I think Naomi was part of it. It was a mixed tag match, right? Yeah, Brodus Clay and the Funkadactyls, right? Wasn't that the one? And the Usos was in it? Something like that? And then the match got canceled. It was in a WrestleMania card and never even got run. They just lost their spot. And I feel like, is this any better? Like, Usos are just getting a payday here. Like, everybody's getting a payday here. This match isn't going to be much. It's just a filler to go and fill 3 hours of a pay-per-view. That's it. So even when you look at the card and you look at the matches we have, like the real star power, something that's going to be like, wow, really jam-packed, you can't build storylines enough for stars that are stagnant, that have been built to mid-card, and they're not going to be any better. And that's where we are with this. Then we look, okay, Drew McIntyre, Happy Corbin, they've been running this storyline for a while. This hasn't been so bad. I don't mind it so much. Okay, actually, but a match I would take in the next level of interest in night one is Miz and Logan Paul versus the Mysterios. I mean, the Miz gets another match like this, another tag match, where he needs to be in the spot with the celebrity. He's the guy that can work it safe and work all the things that he needs to do. But this time it's not Mad Bunny in one corner against him. Now it's Logan Paul. I don't know if Logan Paul draws as much interest and buzz like he does with his boxing work or even with his podcast. Impulsive. I don't see it. And I don't know if we're just waiting for it, but Logan Paul's being a part of this, and I get nothing from the virality of Logan Paul like I normally would expect to see him do that. Like, I'm looking at my FYP. Where am I seeing something with him in there? Or with Miz, for that matter. I don't see it. With all the social media stuff that they do, I just don't see where they're coming from and where it really comes out and it really makes a big enough difference. So that match is really just a celebrity match. And the Mysterios, Dominik, I mean, I guess he's going to take his dad's place, but we see them so much. And they have stood still on never doing that heel turn that we first thought was going to happen. They were going to execute it, and then they stopped and they said, no, we're not going to do it. Why? Why did they go ahead and just not go forward with it? But they didn't. And so those two are together, and they never really made much of the storyline. It never really mattered. Except for the fact that Dominik Mysterio had to go against, who was it? Sheamus, right? And Ridge Holland? The use of the stars and not building them up with matches and wins to build up momentum. Okay, Rick Boogs, yeah, he's getting some wins, but against who? Nobody really important. Everybody is the same for the most part. Except for a couple of handful of stars that are, and that's it. But that's been like that for years. And the next in line folks have to come in and help out with this. And they have to go and throw these people into the fire and see what happens. Same thing goes with some of the NXT 2.0 talent. They're going to have to throw them into the fire to build new stars And I have no doubt in my mind that I think Braun Breaker or Grayson Waller and maybe a couple of others, they're going to get thrown straight into the fire, into the roster, and see what happens to them. And that's it. I don't know. But that match doesn't give any kind of appeal to me either. Drew McIntyre and Happy Corbin. I'm a little bit better with this match because I do like these. I mean, I actually thought the storyline's been fine. And I think the Happy Corbin character's been fine. I'm not blown over the moon for it, but I like the fact they changed him. And he's embracing this character. I mean, they gave him a storyline in the transition to get him here, which we all got into and was pretty good. They don't do enough with him, by the way. The Happy Corbin stuff, just to give him Madcap Moss and do a couple of jokes. No vignettes, nothing out there where he's on the road. Nothing. They did it only on social media. Why can't they put that stuff on TV? They won't. They don't do anything prepackaged, nothing extra special. It has to be all in the ring and nothing else. They don't want to do anything backstage. They'll do backstage stuff, but like really, there's nothing they want to do that's prepackaged or pre-taped that they want to put up and have it done beforehand. They don't want to do any of that. And why the laziness of this company not to do that when they have all the resources? Listen, they can go ahead and have that production team, post-production in Stanford, put together a lot of shit. Listen, they got the network. They got all the content they're doing. You're telling me you can't assign 5-10 minutes worth of prepackaged stuff to build up some storylines? You're building up storylines each week to build up, just repurposing live footage. But how about putting some stuff that you actually done that has been in the can? You shot it properly. You put it on film, whatever. And then you put it out there and get it noticed. Seriously, if we could see Happy Corbin out there, going to Vegas, going to Atlantic City, going to Bet, and do all that kind of stuff, and then, have those guys at the lounges and stuff like that, and build that up over a couple of weeks. They did it with Alexa Bliss. By the way, she's not even on the card. She was in an Elimination Chamber, and she's gone. Poof. Where did she go? And nobody's heard from her. And they did all that work on transitioning her out of her Lily character into somebody more mature. But that hasn't come back. There's no explanation. And then I move up to, I guess you'd say, the KO show with Kevin Owens and Steve Austin. Listen, Kevin Owens is doing the best as a one-man show without his opponent, roughly, figuratively, to deal with. We got one damn vignette out of Stone Cold Steve Austin he produced himself. Otherwise, nothing. And to know that all we're going to get is the one-sided affair now, because I don't think Stone Cold's coming out here on Raw next week. No. They're going to go ahead and do it. They're going to get the glass crashing at WrestleMania. That's when they're going to get the pop and the crash, and he's going to come out and do his thing. They're not getting Stone Cold out before then. They're going to let the surprise happen over there. Got it. We can kind of figure what Kevin Owens and Stone Cold Steve Austin are going to do. Maybe a little bit of tete-a-tete outside the ring or inside the ring, but it's not going to be that much. I don't think so. We're not going to get an actual match. But they had to pull Steve Austin out here to do this gimmick because they have nothing else to sell that crowd out to get it somewhere. This company is struggling to get something important that people will actually give a shit about. When they are so stagnant, people are going because it's WrestleMania and because of a couple of matches. That's it. That is all. Moving along. So the women's titles, SmackDown and Raw women's titles, are now confirmed for night one. That's interesting. They don't want to put that. They don't want to have the women's singles titles on two separate nights, which is really weird to me. So Charlotte Flair and Ronda Rousey. If Ronda's going to be here, Ronda should win it. Charlotte's held on to the belt for a while. It would be a welcome change. Because then what do you have for Charlotte after that? She took Rhea Ripley. She took on Nikki ASH. Who else is left on that side on the other roster? On the SmackDown side? There isn't. Not much going on at all. I look at them saying, okay, should have been better off on Raw, but SmackDown has her, and they don't have much for her to work off of. I guess Bayley coming back would be the only thing I could think of that would be the next step to insert Bayley into the main event after this with a big return on SmackDown, the SmackDown after WrestleMania. I don't know what else you do. So you have that, and I also think Cody Rhodes would probably go on to SmackDown. So like that's the WrestleMania after, the SmackDown after. I think that's when we're going to see like the big surprises, and I think we'll get Bayley and Cody Rhodes back on that SmackDown after. That's what I think is going to happen. So Ronda Rousey, they're kind of just repeating the story of the three-way from before, using cars. Why? Why is it the only thing they're going to use? And, you know, the fact they're actually doing a little bit with vehicles anyway, where, okay, Brock Lesnar takes a forklift and hits it into a SUV, and they do something with Ronda Rousey on top of a car. I mean, this frivolous in-arena booking and all this stuff they're doing for the show, stuff we've seen before. They're just rehashing. And for them to use true, tired, drawn-out gimmicks that we've seen for 20 years, why? I mean, the company doesn't have much more creativity or anything fresh or innovative they're doing at all. I mean, some of the gimmicks are kind of just offshoots of other things. And that's what they're stuck with. Now, the match that is the compelling match for me on that night, the most compelling, is Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. I think they've done a pretty good job of building that up. Becky Lynch has been a very good heel. And, you know, for people that didn't think she was going to be a heel, she is. She successfully became a heel. I give her all the credit in the world. Good on her. So we'll see what needs to happen. The moment we need to see at WrestleMania is see Bianca for the second straight year win that damn belt. Now it'll be one more time that Raw Women's title. Great. That's what she needs to win. And that's what we need to go and see with her so it all gets set up. And that's it. And the fact that we never get Charlotte Flair and Becky Lynch and put that together in a match, that should have been WrestleMania too. You know, I think what would have helped the WrestleMania this year is if you did have Charlotte and Becky combine the belts. They would have done the same thing that they could have done with Brock and Roman. They should have done the same thing with Charlotte and Becky. That's what I always thought they did. And they had the whole chance to set it up, the whole swap. Remember? The switch of the titles because of the switch of the draft. That is exactly when you do that storyline. And you could have built that up from October. You could have done more than enough. And include Becky. So we include Ronda and Bianca in the storyline. That's what they should have done. We don't need the belts defended right now. You could have absolutely had Charlotte and Becky. And I think that match would have been huge. Because they got animosity. You already know how much you can build off that storyline right there. And you could break them off and do whatever you want. That's a match they could have. They didn't need to go and worry about giving away. They should have given it. When you brought Becky back, I thought it was always going to be for Charlotte. And then Ronda came back. Has she meant much more than she did the first time? I don't know. What I do know is she's now under that WWE umbrella because she wasn't doing anything else. And I mean, don't be wrong, she was, you know, having a baby. But the buzz that she had before, you know, when you're not in the UFC for as long as you were, and you're no longer in that part of the world of the combat sports. And I don't know if she was getting a lot of calls to go on to the various shows when it comes to like late night or various other shows in general. Or if any, like, this is the other thing too. I'll bring this up as well. How many of these stars do you see right here that are really strong on social media? Well, they're not. I don't know if there's a lot of stars that are, and for that matter, either, when you look at what's going on. Night 2. Bit better. I mean, when you look what they have, so far, you have, God, a lot of matches actually scheduled for Night 2. We'll start with Sami Zayn versus Johnny Knoxville, anything goes match. This is just a plunder match. But this is fine. I just want to know what they're going to do with Johnny Knoxville if we're going to have some jackass type stunts done within the plunder of this match, which is what they need to do. I mean, dare I say, this match should be one of those cinematic matches. Like, this should be anything goes where it is Sami Zayn and Johnny Knoxville doing jackass stuff. Like, they should do that. I don't know if they're going to do it, but they should. I would like to see that myself. And so I don't know what they're going to do. Okay, Street Profits against RK Bro versus Alpha Academy. It's a little more something. And RK Bro getting the belts back. That's nice. I mean, I can see where Alpha Academy gets the belts back here, or they just keep it as it is. But we haven't gone anywhere where RK Bro, they don't want to go ahead and break that up. And I almost feel like they don't want to do it now because it's almost like New Day, where it's like there's certain groups they want to go ahead and change up. And they might not have to the point where they feel like Riddle is somebody they want to jump off and branch off to a single star. I mean, they've given singles victories. It's taken a lot of times where Randy was not out at ringside when Riddle was competing. So he was out there on his own. And, I mean, he has the association with Randy Orton, which helps a lot with Riddle. He's one of the stars that's on the rise that they have. Like, that's one of the new stars they're actually building out of everybody. Then after that, I'll take it to Pat McAfee and Austin Theory. This match is going to be underrated. This is going to be like how Bad Bunny was last year, how impressed we were. Pat McAfee and Adam Cole had a hell of a match in NXT. Pat McAfee can go. He'll have a very good match with Austin Theory. I do believe that wholeheartedly. That looks like a fun match that's going to happen. I think they can really pull it off. And I'm looking forward to it. Next up. Well, actually, I should have put it lower down the list. But, I mean, not so much because the women's tag team titles fit a four-way. Carmella, Queen Zelina, who played the whole thing where they were kind of like teasing the breakup and then not. Sasha Banks and Naomi, Rhea Ripley, Liv Morgan, Natalya, Shayna Baszler. And why Shayna Baszler is here. And why she was not included in the stuff going on with Ronda Rousey, I don't understand. And that's the other thing I must say, too. To me, you would have gotten a lot more mileage if Charlotte and Becky were wrestling and Shayna took on Ronda Rousey in a submissions match. You were building up Shayna Baszler so much after Nia Jax went out the door, and that whole thing about her destroying arms. And they never followed up on that. They just dropped it. They could have kept Shayna so strong that Ronda would have been the one to take over. But for whatever reason, they don't want to get her up there. Shayna Baszler is set to a certain level in the mid-card. And I think she's such a unique, interesting character that stands out larger than life. She shouldn't be here. Her and Ronda Rousey would have a battle and a half. And they don't even need a belt. Would have just been over pride, and I think they could have done a really good job with that. But they don't want to book it that way. This company refuses to go and do things like that. Okay. Next up, Edge versus AJ Styles. And so Edge is now the new heel, is heel again, and he's the purple Edge. Which, you know, anything to cover up all the gray hairs and the scraggly beard, yeah, that makes sense. But they did get to this pretty late. I mean, they did get to this storyline pretty late. By the way, no Omos on this pay-per-view unless he's on a pre-show. You split off AJ Styles and Omos, who were tag team champions. And AJ Styles is where he was back in the single spot before, near the main event. And Edge just has a featured match, and he needs to find somebody to work with, so he's picked AJ Styles. And they said, okay, Edge, here you go. You got 4 weeks. Go ahead and build it up. Or right after Elimination Chamber, go ahead and build it up. That's it. The match that is WrestleMania worthy is this Universal title versus the WWE Championship. Roman Reigns versus Brock Lesnar. You already know. Those guys are going to get a lot of time together. And they need to bulk that up. I think Roman Reigns needs to hold both belts. It's only right that Roman Reigns stays champion and he holds both belts. I don't think it's time for Roman Reigns to drop that whole lineage right now either. They need to keep him where he is. They have nobody else to take that top spot. It's not Brock because he's not here all the time. Roman's there all the time. It's time to do that. You have nobody else. You have no one else. There's nobody in the bullpen, nobody in the performance center that's ready to come up and automatically skyrocket. Because this company is so concerned about avoiding anyone for getting too big for their britches that they're going to lose their spot and they're going to say, oh, you know, I'm not going to worry about all this. They can't do it. And that's what they got to worry about. With that said, I think that's where we're going to leave it. Not much more I can say about it. I'm not going to get myself up to an hour and try to stretch it out. That's what I look at. We will do a post-show, WrestleMania Night 1 and 2. We'll talk about staying delivered. And I'll let you know if I do anything else, because for the WrestleMania weekend, I know there's other things going on. Supercard of Honor is April 1st. Multiverse of Madness, I think, is April 2nd. I forget. There's going to be other things going on, so we'll keep an eye on that. I'll leave it there. Thanks for listening to the Wrestling's Real podcast, because wrestling needs us. Thank you for listening to the Wrestling is Real podcast. You can find all previous episodes at WrestlingIsReal.com or subscribe to the show on all major podcast outlets, including Apple, Amazon, Google, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. Follow the King of Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at King of Podcasts, and search King of Podcasts on YouTube, or type youtube.com/JBRASCO951. This has been a presentation of the King of Podcasts Radio Network.